For thousands of years, certain nations have risen and fallen like waves against the shore, strong, proud, but short-lived. Yet there exists a civilization that has outlasted conquerors, empires, and ideologies. Its endurance cannot be explained by military power or wealth. It is the result of inner strength, wisdom, and the ability to transform pain into progress. When others crumbled under the weight of time, this civilization learned, adapted, and came back stronger than before. There is something remarkable about how a people can absorb shock after shock and yet retain their essence. Most societies lose their soul when they lose their sovereignty, but here the opposite happened. Every invasion, every period of foreign rule, every economic hardship became an education rather than a defeat. Instead of erasing its identity, each challenge refined it. When the sword of the invader cut through borders, it could not reach the foundation built upon thought, faith, and philosophy. Strength in this context doesn't come from defiance alone, it comes from comprehension. The ability to observe, learn, and then rebuild with greater wisdom is a power very few civilizations possess. The world tends to celebrate rapid success, but enduring strength comes from patience and self-belief. This culture never relied solely on force. It relied on understanding, the understanding that change is inevitable, that time destroys everything superficial, and that only those rooted in values can withstand centuries. When traders came, the people learned commerce. When invaders came, they learned resistance. When colonizers came, they learned discipline, organization, and reform. And when independence came, they didn't seek revenge. They sought rebirth. This is not weakness. It is mastery of emotion. It is the highest form of civilization when a people can suffer, learn, and still forgive. The secret lies in continuity of thought. While the external world kept changing, new rulers, new technologies, new ideologies, the moral and intellectual thread stayed unbroken. The ancient texts, philosophies, and spiritual traditions did not disappear into history. They continued to shape new generations. This flow of knowledge from one era to the next acted as armor. The physical nation might have been invaded, but the intellectual nation was never conquered. Resilience, in its purest form, is not loud. It doesn't march or boast. It observes quietly and waits for the right moment to rise again. That is what happened here, again and again. After centuries of foreign domination, poverty, and internal strife, one might expect a society to lose faith in itself. Yet what emerged was not despair, but determination, a sense that history may bend, but it cannot break the spirit of a people who understand their own worth. And perhaps the most fascinating part of this endurance is that it was never driven by hatred. It was driven by purpose, a desire to preserve knowledge, to pursue truth, to live in harmony despite hardship. Empires built on violence vanished once their armies disappeared, but a civilization built on learning and reflection does not die. It simply waits until the world is ready to listen again. Every monument, every language, every tradition here is a reminder that survival is not an accident. It's a result of collective discipline and wisdom passed down over generations. The strength of this civilization is not that it never fell. It's that it knew how to rise every single time it did. True power is not revealed in moments of victory, but in how calmly one prepares during times of uncertainty. The most remarkable form of strength is quiet, deliberate, and deeply rooted in foresight. While most societies chase instant results and loud declarations of success, the wiser ones understand that real progress is built brick by brick over decades, even centuries. The difference between noise and influence lies in the ability to wait strategically, to think beyond the moment and trust in the slow compounding of effort. There is a rare kind of wisdom in not rushing to prove one's strength. When the impatient burn out their energy chasing quick wins, the patient conserve theirs, studying patterns, learning from mistakes, and positioning themselves for the future. This ability to endure without losing focus, to move without haste, and to plan without fear of delay, this is the mark of strategic intelligence. It is the mindset of builders, not gamblers. In the long arc of history, those who mastered time always triumphed over those who tried to manipulate it. Empires rose through aggression and fell through arrogance, but those who understood the rhythm of patience survived every storm. They didn't panic during periods of difficulty because they viewed each challenge as a phase, not an end. To think long term is to understand that today's discomfort can be tomorrow's advantage if faced with clarity and discipline. What makes this approach so effective is that it allows one to play a game others don't even realize exists. While the world measures progress in years, the wise measure it in generations. They invest in education, in values, in systems that outlive individuals. They plant trees knowing they may never sit in their shade. That kind of patience is not passive, it's purposeful. It's the patience of someone who understands that timing, not speed, determines destiny. This principle is visible in every aspect of enduring success, economic growth, cultural influence, or social stability. Instead of reacting emotionally to every challenge, a long-term thinker analyzes the root causes, studies patterns, and makes incremental but irreversible moves. The strength lies in compounding, small, consistent progress that multiplies over time. Just as wealth compounds with discipline, so does wisdom, stability, and power. Strategic patience also means knowing when not to act. Restraint is often more powerful than reaction. In a world obsessed with constant activity, the ability to pause, think, and wait for the right moment is rare. It requires confidence because only those secure in their vision can afford to delay gratification. The impulsive rush to prove strength often leads to self-destruction, while the composed thinker quietly builds something that cannot be dismantled. It's easy to mistake silence for weakness, yet beneath the surface of patience lies immense control. It is the stillness of the archer who waits for the perfect moment to release the arrow. It is the calm of a strategist who sees the entire battlefield before making a single move. Such patience is not born of inaction, but of mastery over emotion, an understanding that every reaction has a cost, and only a few are worth paying. History rewards those who think in decades, not days. The ability to plan far ahead is what separates temporary dominance from lasting influence. The impatient crave recognition. The patient build legacies. Those who look beyond immediate gain can afford to lose small battles because they are focused on winning the war that truly matters, the war of endurance, evolution, and purpose. The true wealth of any nation is not stored in its banks or buried beneath its soil. It resides in the minds of its people. Material resources may run dry, empires may fall, and borders may shift, but a society built on knowledge can rise from the ashes of any downfall. When a culture makes learning its foundation, it becomes undefeatable, not because of weapons or wealth, but because its most powerful resource cannot be taken away. For centuries, the strength of this civilization has come from its reverence for wisdom. Long before modern institutions existed, it treated learning as a sacred duty. The pursuit of understanding, of nature, the self, and the universe, was seen not merely as a path to survival, but as a form of worship. The idea that knowledge is divine created generations of thinkers, philosophers, and innovators who viewed curiosity as a moral responsibility. When other nations sought power through conquest, this one sought mastery through comprehension. The world's greatest civilizations have often been judged by what they built, but the measure of a truly enduring one lies in what it taught. This land produced not only kings and warriors, but mathematicians who defined logic, astronomers who mapped the skies, physicians who understood the human body, and philosophers who explored consciousness long before science had words for it. Their discoveries were not accidents. They were the result of a collective culture that valued learning more than luxury and wisdom more than wealth. What makes intellectual capital so resilient is that it multiplies through sharing. When knowledge becomes part of the social fabric, it cannot be destroyed by invasion or censorship. Even when libraries were burned and scholars exiled, the teachings lived on through memory, oral traditions, and mentorship. Every family that valued education became a fortress of preservation. Every teacher, no matter how humble, became a guardian of civilization. The brilliance of such a system lies in its inclusivity. Learning was not the privilege of a few, it was the duty of all. Villages had storytellers, poets, artisans, and thinkers, each contributing to the collective intelligence of the nation. This democratization of knowledge meant that progress didn't depend solely on rulers or elites. It came from the curiosity and discipline of ordinary people who refused to stop asking questions. In modern times, this legacy continues in a new form. The world now witnesses how a nation with deep intellectual roots adapts effortlessly to technology and innovation. Its thinkers don't merely consume global knowledge, they enhance it. They write the algorithms that shape the digital age, lead scientific breakthroughs, and build solutions for challenges that affect the entire world. The same mental rigor that once built ancient academies now drives modern laboratories and global enterprises. But what truly sustains this tradition is not technical skill, it's the attitude toward learning itself. There is a humility in the way knowledge is pursued here. Learning is not seen as a competition, but as a lifelong journey. The more one learns, the more one realizes how little one knows, that humility fuels curiosity, and curiosity fuels progress. It's a cycle of enlightenment that never ends. Intellectual strength also brings moral responsibility. When people understand deeply, they act wisely. When they question sincerely, they govern justly. And when they innovate with conscience, they create growth that uplifts rather than exploits. That is why nations built on knowledge endure longer than those built on power. They create not just prosperity, but purpose. The strength of a nation is not found in its uniformity, but in its ability to remain united despite its differences. True harmony is not the absence of variety, it is the mastery of balance among contradictions. When people of countless languages, faiths, and customs live together without losing their shared sense of belonging, they achieve something far more powerful than order. They create resilience. That is the kind of strength that does not crumble under pressure, because it is built on understanding rather than fear. Across this vast land, every region carries its own rhythm, its own colors, and its own stories. Yet, despite the staggering diversity, there exists an invisible thread that binds all of it together. It's not a political structure or a law, it's a consciousness, a deep awareness that unity does not mean sameness. Each community contributes a unique note to a collective symphony that has played for thousands of years. It is this capacity to hold contradictions in harmony that makes the culture indestructible. Throughout history, this unity has been tested again and again. Invaders came with the hope of dividing people by faith, caste, or creed. Politicians tried to manipulate identities for power. Yet each time, after the noise settled, the people found their way back to one another. This is because their connection was never merely institutional. It was emotional, spiritual, and deeply woven into daily life. The marketplace, the festival, the shared meal, the song sung by a stranger, all became acts of integration. What makes this coexistence extraordinary is the way it celebrates difference instead of suppressing it. Each tradition, no matter how small, is seen as a thread in a grander design. When a person travels from one corner of the country to another, they may encounter different dialects, gods, cuisines, and customs. Yet they find a familiar rhythm in the way people greet, worship, and dream. There is an unspoken recognition that despite all visible contrasts, everyone belongs to the same story. This kind of unity cannot be built through force or rules. It grows from shared values. Respect, tolerance, and hospitality are not slogans. They are ingrained habits. A culture that teaches its people to bow before the divine in countless forms naturally learns to respect difference in human form. That is why coexistence here is not fragile. It is deeply philosophical. It understands that truth can have many faces and still be one. Such inclusiveness fuels creativity and innovation. When people from different traditions interact, they exchange not only ideas but ways of seeing the world. Art, music, science, and philosophy flourish in such environments because they are constantly refreshed by diversity. Every fusion of cultures becomes a new expression of strength. This is how continuity is achieved without rigidity, and progress is made without losing identity. Even in times of tension, this unity has a self-correcting quality. The people may argue fiercely, yet they rarely abandon the principle that disagreement is not enmity. Debate is part of the culture. It refines rather than destroys. This openness to dissent ensures that the society does not stagnate. It evolves while staying anchored to its core values. The result is a civilization that can absorb shocks without losing its essence. Its cultural DNA is built on flexibility, empathy, and collective memory. It does not erase difference. It transforms it into strength. When the world looks at it from afar, it may seem chaotic. 1,000 voices speaking at once. But listen closely, and one hears not chaos but coordination, not conflict but coexistence. The measure of a nation's greatness is not just in the size of its economy or the might of its armies, but in the integrity of its conscience. When a civilization learns to anchor its progress in moral clarity, it creates a kind of power that cannot be destroyed by war, corruption, or time. Material prosperity can be imitated, but ethical endurance cannot. It is the quiet foundation upon which all lasting greatness is built. This moral depth comes from centuries of reflection about life, duty, and truth. Rather than seeing morality as a set of rigid rules, this civilization treats it as a living philosophy, one that evolves but never loses its essence. It teaches that strength without compassion is hollow, and knowledge without humility is dangerous. It reminds its people that every action must serve not just the self, but the greater balance of the world. In this way, ethics is not an accessory to progress. It is its spine. From ancient times, thinkers here explored the question of how one should live, not just how one should rule. The answers they found were not confined to temples or books. They became part of daily conduct. The idea that truth must be pursued even at personal cost, that compassion should temper justice, and that inner peace is a form of power. These ideals shaped the collective consciousness. Over generations, they created citizens capable of withstanding hardship without losing dignity, and success without losing humility. A society guided by such principles does not need to shout about its virtues. It expresses them through behavior. The act of welcoming a stranger, the instinct to share food, the respect for elders, the forgiveness after conflict. These are not signs of weakness, but of civilization at its highest. True strength is gentle because it is confident. When morality is internalized, it doesn't require enforcement. It becomes self-regulating, guiding decisions both personal and national. Philosophical strength is equally vital. It gives people a framework to interpret suffering, uncertainty, and change without collapsing into despair. When a nation believes that truth can be approached through reason and introspection, it becomes resilient against manipulation and fear. It learns that challenges are not punishments but teachers. Such thinking transforms adversity into opportunity and ensures that temporary setbacks do not erode collective confidence. This moral and intellectual tradition also encourages balance. The idea that life is not a battlefield of extremes, but a pursuit of harmony. It teaches moderation in success, patience in failure, and clarity in ambition. Instead of glorifying excess, it praises discipline. Instead of feeding anger, it cultivates understanding. This equilibrium prevents the society from being consumed by the same forces, greed, division, arrogance, that have undone other great powers. What sets this foundation apart is its universality. It does not exclude, it embraces. It recognizes that morality is not bound by religion, class, or culture. It is an instinct present in every human heart. By appealing to this shared conscience, the civilization builds bridges even where politics builds walls. Its philosophy of coexistence and respect for all forms of life allows it to influence others without domination. That is true leadership, the kind that persuades through example, not coercion. As the modern world races toward material progress, it often loses sight of the inner compass that keeps societies from self-destruction. Yet here, that compass remains alive. Even as technology transforms daily life, the core belief persists that progress without ethics is regression in disguise. The wisdom that built this foundation centuries ago still guides it today, reminding its people that the ultimate measure of success is not what they acquire, but what they become.